Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tome Raider Classics. I almost forgot the subcategory there. I'm Ollie. I'm
Yeah.
here with Dan. How you doing, Dan?
Surviving. It is once again warm in the UK. Who let this happen?
I don't know, but they must pay. Uh,
Yeah. How are you doing?
it is stuffy as hell in here, but other than that, I'm fine. And this week we read a little more of The Return of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. Yes. Where we got an inadvertent football score this week. Napoleon 6, students 3.
Yeah. Uh,
Now, I'm not a football fan, but I can't resist it when that happens
yeah.
and stuff like
I know
that.
the feeling.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yes. So there was a bit more of sort of a range in this week's sort of things going
yeah.
as opposed to just there. For example, there were only two murders in this one,
Yeah.
as a as opposed to the normal. There were two murders, and
This will be the.
neither of them were neither of them were realistically. Uh, they weren't premeditated. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. And, of course, the one I was familiar with the most was the Six Napoleons. Uh,
Yeah,
Although I was more familiar with the BBC Sherlock version, the Six Thatchers, because
yeah, because
reasons,
it was on
I
TV.
guess.
Yes, and yeah, I believe the Six Thatchers was sort of like a sub case that was over in about 10 minutes of a main episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than an entire episode itself. Yeah, so yes, well, the Six Napoleons is the start. So we should start there with Lestrade is at Baker Street because Holmes is desperately mining for a case to do at this point. He is bored. And he's got Lestrade popping in every now and then to see if are there any cases you need help with. And it seems like he's gone through everything else on his docket, as it was. And it's just like, I feel almost embarrassed to bring this up. It's not really a case as such, but there's been a case of three busts of Napoleon belonging to two individuals having been destroyed in London. And it's just sort of like this actually grabs Holmes's attention because oh, and there's Seb. Now we return to the return of the Pink Panthers returns.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I
Yeah,
no, I did deliberately call this one the Return of Sherlock Holmes. This will
yeah,
be the penultimate Return of Sherlock Holmes episode.
yeah. But yeah, Sherlock gets interested in the case because it seems strange. It's the only these three busts have been targeted so far because they're all from the same mold. Old, I want to say Divines was the name of the original mold sculptor,
Yeah.
an Italian, and according to Sherlock, there are thousands of busts of Napoleon in London at this time, which strikes me as a weird thing, given Napoleon was sort of an enemy of Britain not too long before this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we know that there's Napoleon, Napoleon the Second, Napoleon the Third, and Napoleon Dynamite. uh,
yeah, yeah. But yeah. So Holmes says shows some interest, but isn't actually going out to investigate if memory serves himself. And until the next day when Lestrade comes back and says, "Is there's been a fourth bust has been broken, and oh yeah, a murder. Yeah.
Oh, there's
In
been
the
a
case
murder
of
as well.
yeah,
Which,
in the case of the busts, they were the only things taken. Two of them were one was destroyed in the house where it's originally stolen. The second was taken from another house but smashed outside, and the third was smashed in the doctor's surgery, which or the offices of the man who'd also had the one stolen and smashed outside. That was smashed inside. Right, so it's raised Sherlock's curiosity and has caused the gears to slightly turn.
yeah, he
And
made the very serious mistake of piquing Sherlock Holmes's interest.
yeah, Lestrade thinks it's just an anti-Napoleon lunatic going around, but Holmes has got that's wrong. Otherwise, why is he only targeting these specific molds?
Seb says it's kind
Molds
of
from
weird
this.
that Napoleon busts are popular. It'd be like if we had Bin Laden busts in 60 years or so. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
it's exactly like that, but I know what you mean.
yeah, it is that sort of the thing. So they go round to the to investigate the murder, and it's a journalist who's had the bust of Napoleon, who is very sort of annoyed that this is going on. It's just like, oh, I'm giving away this key story that can earn me money to for free repeatedly to the police, and all the other papers are going to beat me to this story. And this is the second time this has happened. And because there was like a great collapse of the stands at a sporting event, and I was there. I was actually on the stands as they collapsed, but every paper beat mine to the story, in which just cynical nature from like papers that are nowadays is sort of like I would have thought that would have been the end of your journalistic career, that you were beaten to the story the other stands when you were literally in there and are a journalist,
Yeah.
and your paper was the only one that didn't get one.
Uh,
Yeah, and yeah, the dead man had been found in the early hours of the morning, where the owner was investigating a noise. An investigation of him finds a picture of a photograph of a quote unquote rather apish looking man.
oh.
Uh, it once again the moral characters are they're not described as handsome, but they never are described in negative connotations, and immoral characters are deformed or slightly primitive looking.
Yeah.
We've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they investigate and they conclude that the guy must have, was killed by whoever broke in as they were leaving. And they also they find the fragments of the bust a few houses along outside an abandoned house. But it wasn't the first abandoned house passed away, and Holmes concludes that this one was chosen because it had a light above where it was being smashed in the garden, and therefore would allow the person to examine the fragments clearly, which is what Holmes does, and doesn't conclude anything odd about them. But they then go back and talk to Harker, who's the journalist, and Holmes gives him a bit of a story, spins a bit of a falsehood for his story that it's just a murderous lunatic. But you should be fine now because you now no longer have a Napoleon in your house. Is sort of what it gets on, but it's part of Holmes sort of trying to calm the culprits with a misdirect so they don't think that someone's
Yeah.
onto them.
Which is why he corroborates Lestrade's assumption that the guy's just mad. and has some weird grudge against Napoleon.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. While this is going on, Lestrade is investigating the murder victim, and Holmes is investigating the two companies that sold the bus because they've worked out.
So it's the
Lestrade
opposite of French literature, where the only good person looks hideous, and he goes, "I bloody hate Napoleon, me."
Yeah. Yeah. But, yes, Lestrade had actually managed to work out before Holmes came onto the case that these busts were not only from the same mold, but were from the same batch of six. So Holmes is now investigating the two stores that got half of the batch each to work out, well, where they are. The first one they go to, oh, all three of those were the first three that were broken. Okay, so evidently it's not something for that. We don't need to worry about any of them anymore, and they investigate the next two. But they do learn from the factory that made them that the man in the photograph that they're shown is called Beppo, Beppo, and
Yep.
used to work there until he was arrested about a year ago for stabbing another Italian gentleman. Because and they was like, "Do you have any other Italian stuff?" Yes, a fair number of the workers are Italians. They do good jobs with the arts. So Italians are purely artists in this story, as sort of thing,
Yeah.
for the moment. And yeah, Sherlock gets the addresses of the other two that were sold from the second one on, and sends off a couple of messages when having arranged for Lestrade to meet them, and learns that the man who is dead, Lestrade believes, is a mafioso,
Yeah.
and that Venucci, Venucci, was
Venucci.
sent. Venucci, thank you, was sent to kill Beppo because he had crossed the mafiosos in some way.
Yeah.
That
And
doesn't turn out to be the case, but would have perhaps been a tad more interesting if it had been.
yeah. Well, now I do want to point out like a pet peeve of mine. He goes, he is connected with the mafia, which, as you know, is a secret political society enforcing its decrees by murder. That's a thing in writing and dialogue that annoys me. The phrase "as you know."
Yeah, it
If
probably would have been better if
if
they'd
they
had
know it, why are you telling them?
Yeah, it's a thing where you could have had Lestrade just because he's used to dealing with people who don't know. Oh, going to Sherlock. Mafioso, the secret organization that enforces is their will by murder from the shadows, and just Sherlock going, I know this, Lestrade. Get to more interesting details.
It's like he's
Just have
connected with the mafia, and Watson goes, "The what?"
Yeah, like have Watson not know, or have Lestrade just assume for some reason that Sherlock doesn't know because he's used to dealing with people who wouldn't necessarily. Because as we have seen throughout things, Sherlock has a low opinion of most police officers, with Lestrade and Gregson being the only two really from the London force he thinks has any sort of potential.
They're the only
So
two
it
he
is,
sort of respects.
yeah, so it is not an unfair assumption to say that other police officers in the force would need some things explained to them from Lestrade or Gregson. And so it's not an unfair thing to say that Lestrade is used to dealing with people who do need it spelled out to them.
Yeah, and Oh, Seb says, Beppo, gotta love it when your character sounds like a Central European off license, as opposed to my maths teacher at school, Don Eladio. He was a mafioso. Oh, God. I wonder if the Mafia was an obscure organisation before the advent of 20th century pop culture. I don't know. When did the Mafia enter mainstream pop culture, I wonder?
I imagine the Mafia probably became a lot more well publicly known. Yeah, because mafioso and mafia, I think there are slight differences between them. Well, I think mafioso refers to specific family groups, whereas mafia is a crime.
Yeah,
A
Mafia
crime
is
of
like the umbrella term.
yeah, whereas mafioso, I think, refers to a couple of specific family groups in Italy.
Yeah.
Whereas because you get the Italian mafia and the Japanese mafia, which are also known as the Yakuza, but that's not exclusively the Japanese mafia, because that's also the Japanese mob, another term that's also used.
Yeah.
I confused the words Jaku for hot tub and the Japanese mob, and now I'm in hot water with the Yakuza.
uh,
I probably bungled that and got half of it wrong, but
never
yeah,
mind, eh? Uh,
yeah,
it's
but
so Lestrade is going to go to the Italian Quarter and find the man in the photograph. Oh no, Sherlock is going to.
Lestrade, what you were right. Lestrade does want to go to the Italian Quarter and find and search for the man in the photograph. Sherlock talks him out of doing it until the next day, because nothing will be lost by delaying it, and they might very well catch them tonight if Lestrade comes with them to
and
Sherlock's
Lestrade,
night escape.
Lestrade goes, oh, to the Italian Quarter. He goes, no, Chiswick.
Yeah, because that is the nearer of the two addresses for the remaining busts. So he thinks it's logical to assume that they'll be going for the next nearest one, especially as they're, thanks to Harker's story that appeared in the evening editions of the papers, it's being made clear that the police seemingly don't believe that the busts are the focus. They're just a sign of a loon rather than there's something more to it. It's because there's no indication that they've realised the buses are all of the same make or the same batch. And so they have a bit of a sleepover because they're going to be up late in the night. This shows that they're starting to get a bit older. Holmes and Watson retire to their room, and Lestrade takes the couch.
Yeah.
Like Lestrade was told to come over at 6 o'clock, and they're heading out at 11, so they're having a nap before they go hunting a criminal. It was just sort of like, what nonsense is this? It feels like.
Yeah. Let's take a nap before we go.
Yes. It's going to be a long night. There's a Lestrade. The couch is yours.
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
the ease with which he like, says that implies that this is not the only time this has happened.
Yeah, it's a few things. It's just sort of amusing to me that Inspector Lestrade is having a sleepover around Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and his roommate, Dr. Watson. My God, they were roommates.
They were roommates. Ah.
Yeah, but so they go and they wait outside the house in Chiswick, and they watch a man break in, and then they wait for him to come out, and I was like, I want to see what he's doing, and sort of side. And you see him smash the bust, and he's forging around in the bits of it. And while he's doing that, for like, I want to say the fifth or sixth time in just the Return of Sherlock Holmes, Holmes sneaks up on the villain and catches them unaware from behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the aid of Watson and this time Lestrade. They don't always have Lestrade with them. And because let's see, there was the empty house it happened twice in Black Peter, where Sherlock
The
caught them
dancing
off
men
guard.
as well.
Yes. So yeah, this would be the fifth time it's happened that we can recall offhand within 7 stories. Yeah. Okay. But
They're starting to feel a little bit formulaic.
yeah, the man who is doing the robberies is Beppo, who worked for the company that made them, and then also worked for the company where he that sold the first 3 that were destroyed. But Beppo refuses to talk and to explain anything that's going on. So just right, okay, take him away. Locking up. Well, Lestrade, would you come over in the morning again? And it's just like, might as well at this point have just invited Lestrade to stay over even longer.
Yeah, we can.
No.
We'll get Mrs. Hudson to, like, get us breakfast in the morning. We can swap ghost stories.
And we can build a pillow fort.
Yeah.
Or and braid each other's hair. We'll have a gay old time of it.
Or as this is Sherlock Holmes, who doesn't do anything halfway, he'll build a, like, full-on pillow castle.
Tally ho! And fire a cannon full of grape shot down the stairs. Holmes, I do believe you just obliterated our breakfast.
Ah.
She did not signal correctly. That she was friend. Sorry. We do entertain ourselves with these asides, don't we?
And sometimes you do just do things for yourself.
Sorry, I've just seen Seb's comments. Kind of funny that the Mafia and the Yakuza were on opposite sides of the Second World War. I thought at the end, unless the Italian Mafia was working against the interests of Italy, they were on the same side for the most part. The American Mafia, would have been against Japan, but the main bulk of it at the time would have still been in Italy. So they would have been on the same side until Italy's surrender. Because Italy is the old country where the original families all came from.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mafia trivia aside.
Yeah.
The next day, Lestrade's there and trying to get bits, some information, put it together, solve it, and they get a knock, and the gentleman caller. Okay, Mussolini was against the Mafia, and a lot went to America. There's still, I don't doubt it would have been uniform that some of them wouldn't have made a deal with Mussolini, because that's just how Italian government has basically worked for the last 100-odd years. Is you need the Mafia on your side. Anyway, okay, Mafia aside for the moment.
That Mafia aside.
Yes, going away from the aside, a gentleman has come over. He is the owner of the last of this batch of the Six Napoleons.
And Sherlock says, "I'll give you a tenner for it, mate." Is that?
Yeah, he's. Sherlock has inquired. It's like he specifically wants a casting of the divine sculpt of Napoleon, and it's sort of the last ones, and it's just sort of like, as Seb saying, this would have been a better discussion for Mafia Monday. Yes, it would have. But it was just sort of like, I am going to offer you £10 for your Scotch. It was just like, I must tell you, I paid nowhere near that. And it was just sort of like, it is good to your character that you say that, but £10 is what it offered, so £10 is what I shall pay.
Yeah.
And the man happily takes it, and £10 now from I believe it said 1904 specifically for this story.
1904.
Yeah, we've been doing 1905 because that's when the volume came out, but this one, I believe, specifically mentioned the year was 1904.
Okay, so £10 in 1904 in today's money is £1,081.55. Bloody hell, he gave him a grand for it.
Yeah, especially when the guy was sort of like, I think he'd paid, what was it, 15 shillings, he said? And I'm going to have to go back to...
it was 15 shillings.
Yeah, which I honestly don't know how much that is in nowadays, but...
Well, 15 shillings, well, a shilling is basically 5p. So 15 shillings would be £1.50.
Yes, it is. So, how much would that be in conversion? I forgot shillings for that total. So £1.50 in 1904.
So he paid £162.23 for it.
Yeah, so he made a good £920 profit, roughly, off of it.
In today's money, yeah.
Yes. It's in which once the man is barely starting down the stairs for this, so like the door's closed, Holmes opens up a white cloth on the table, puts the bust of that in the centre of it, grabs his riding crop, which is a constant companion of his whenever they're in Baker Street, but we rarely mention it. He's always basically fiddling his riding crop when he's not doing anything else. And then
no, Seb, that's not a euphemism.
Thank you for getting that. I forgot to say that. And then whacks down on the bust once, causing it to shatter. And then has a ha-ha, grabs a piece and goes, "Behold, the Black Pearl of the Borgias."
Which is a wonderful name for a MacGuffin.
Yeah, and it's just attached to a bit of the plaster is a massive pearl, basically, that is black. Like, they say it is probably the most valuable pearl in the world. Due to, in part to its history and to its unique colouring and size.
Yeah.
Which, admittedly, given the average size of a pearl, does not actually have to make it that big to be of a unique, particularly large variety of it.
Yeah. Is Jack Sparrow involved with this somehow? It sounds like he should be.
Yeah, it should be, because it's a black pearl. But, no. Sherlock lays out that, basically, this pearl has had a storied history of going missing since the death of the Borgias, and reappearing and such. But, it fall into the hands of a, and the most recent stealing of it, its suspicion had fallen onto the hands of the owner's, or the head of the owner's maid, who was Lucretia what was that surname from earlier? The man who died. Venucci? Venucci.
Venucci.
Venucci. Lucretia Venucci. Slightly appropriate. That suspicion of stealing a Borgia's pearl went to the local Lucretia.
Yeah.
Because, don't stab Lucretia, Ollie, for God's sake. Reference to our Assassin's Creed streams, where Ollie stabbed Lucretia and we weren't meant to.
I'm a simple man. I see Borgias, I stab.
Yeah. It's a running gag for us now.
Uh,
Yeah, but yeah, who was Lucretia was the sister of Pietro, oh, who was the man who was killed, uh, and Beppo had stolen it off of them, and that was the altercation he had just before he was arrested a year earlier, and Holmes had deducted that that he had seen the busts drying from their molds because they were plaster of Paris half molds doing that, and being a craftsman there himself, he had made a hole in it, pushed the pearl in, and then covered it up. But once it dried, there was no way to tell the difference between them. So he just had to hunt down this bunch of them and smash them until he found it.
and
Which
he,
convenient. It had to be the one that was furthest away from where he was looking.
yeah, like
And,
he had to have smashed all but the last one.
and he'd not found it.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
and
if he got that one first, we'd never have known.
yeah. Then and Pietro had come after him because he'd realized he was out and he was going to reclaim the pearl. So he was trying to get back what had been rightfully stolen by his sister.
Yeah,
Yeah. So but when he accosted him, his knife was turned against him and it went wrong, and he died instead. And with the assumption that it was a Napoleon-hating loon, he felt confident enough to go out and get the next one, and it be the one that was nearest, not the one that was further afield, because he felt that the heat wasn't on him. It was. They got him,
yeah.
but the story ends with Sherlock doing a sort of thing, is just sort of like, oh, you saw me pay £10 for the bust, and this was inside it. Watson, put it in the safe. It's just sort of like, is Sherlock claiming ownership of the Black Pearl of the Borgias?
I mean, I suppose he has as much right to it as anyone right now.
Well, yeah, it's technically still a stolen object. I am imagining that it is in that safe until it can be returned to its last owner, who probably the last owner it could legitimately be returned to has been dead for a few centuries at this point.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, that would be a valid line.
The evidence. This evidence is mine now.
Yeah, but so we're imagining that the pearl was probably returned to the owner that Lucrezia stole it from.
You'd never fence something like that, though.
Yeah, with great difficulty, one would imagine.
Yeah.
Though, then again, if you're working with the mafioso, they might just have paid you to get it anyway.
Yeah.
Or if you have connections, you might just be able to trade it into them, because how do you fence things? Well, they do it for a living. So yeah, you might get fleeced a bit on sort of their cut coming out of it, but you're probably still better off than not doing it via that way.
Yeah.
Because then also, if you then bring them things in the future, they'll probably be happy to buy it from you as well, because you've done good work.
Yeah.
But yeah. So ends the story of the Six Napoleons, which the BBC adapted into the Six Thatchers, and it had exactly the same basic plot to it.
And
It is Six Thatcher bus. You move it to a light when you smash it, and damn it, the pearl's not in there.
although this one, I'm going to read out the last paragraph. It does end on a bit of a different note, and it goes, we sat in silence for a moment. Well, said Lestrade, I've seen you handle a good many cases, Mr. Holmes, but I don't know that I ever knew a more workmanlike one than that. We're not jealous of you at Scotland Yard. No, sir, we are very proud of you. And if you come down tomorrow, there's not a man from the oldest inspector to the youngest constable who wouldn't be glad to shake you by the hand. Thank you, said Holmes, thank you, as he turned away. It seemed to me that he was more nearly moved by the softer human emotions than I had ever seen him. A moment later, he was the cold and practical thinker once more. Put the pearl in the safe, Watson, said he, and get out the papers of the Conk Singleton forgery case. Goodbye, Lestrade. If any little problem comes your way, I shall be happy if I can to give you a hint or two as to its solution.
Yeah.
And it's like, it threatens to give Sherlock Holmes a human reaction to praise.
Yeah. This is a bit of an emotional wibble, or wobble, or wobble even.
Yeah.
Wibble. Yeah. It's one thing, but it was just sort of like, I had the half second of being human. Let's dig out the next case. Which is a trait of the character that I think they do quite well in the Elementary adaptation, and like Holmes putting all his energy into cases, and then it's just sort of like it features a lot in the early episodes rather than some of the later ones. Where he's just sort of like they've just finished the case, the episode is about to end, and he's just sort of like digging out files for a new one. What's like, why are you doing that? We just solved the case, and it's like, yes. And in the glow of victory is when we are most ready to take on the next one. We have the energy and the drive. We should take this moment to do it. And Watson goes and shuts the curtains, turns around, and Holmes has fallen asleep on the floor where he is, surrounded by cases, head lolling backwards. Because he's put that much energy into it. It's just like, now in the glow of victory is the time for the next case.
That show sounds
hasn't
fun.
slept in 3 days. If memory serves. But yeah, is a nice take on that. Where it's sort of like the man who works himself to the bone, who's then just sort of like, and stop. Hit the wall, crash.
Yeah.
Have a sleep. Let Watson have a break as well from your absolute nonsense.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the adventure of the Six Napoleons.
Yes, where a light bit of burglary, and Sherlock Holmes acquires one of the rarest artifacts or the most sought after artifacts in the world.
Yeah. And just stashes it in the safe.
Yeah. Sort of like the safety of the safe is probably just down to the fact that no one wants to cross Mrs. Hudson. Who, you know, I must admit, there are parts of my brain that thinks of Mrs. Hudson in the same way as Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's yes, the residents of the house are dangerous, but do not, under any circumstance, underestimate the housekeeper or their landlady. And indeed, they do go a bit into that in the BBC Sherlock adaptation of it, where she was the woman who basically ran a drug cartel. Like, sure, her husband was the figurehead, but she was basically the reason it worked.
Well, it was her husband's cartel. She was just typing.
Yeah. Yeah, but the implication of that is her typing is the reason the darn thing worked. And the one with Irene Adler, oh god, I can't remember it. It's the name of it. I think the first in season 2.
A Scandal in Belgravia, I believe that one was, because A Scandal in Bohemia was.
Yeah, Mrs. Hudson, leave Baker Street. Why, England would fall.
Yeah.
Oh, shame on you. It's just sort of like, my phone. It's in the safest place I can imagine. And Mrs. Hudson, who I know in the kitchen afterwards, you left it in the pocket of your second best dressing gown. She went handing it back to him, having kept hold of it herself. Yeah, just sort of like. Yeah, that's the only reason that the Black Pearl of the Borgias and the Blue Carbuncle from 2 anthologies ago, I want to say, were actually safe. while they were in that safe. Not that no one knew they were there. It's the fact that those who might know they were there knew not to cross Mrs. Hudson. Note, I have no basis of this other than it amuses me.
Yeah.
There was no real basis in fact for this.
I've said before, I say again, I enjoyed the BBC adaptation. It just wasn't a particularly good adaptation. It wasn't a particularly faithful adaptation, I should say.
Yeah.
And the thing that annoys me most about it is it's one of those things that conflates being intelligent with being rude.
Yeah.
It's like that's just I'm so sick of that trope.
Yeah, there are the occasional moments in these Sherlock Holmes stories where he is rude, but it's not because he's smarter than everyone and that.
It's usually because he's frustrated in the moment.
Yeah, frustrated in the moment, or the rudeness will get things to actually move along. Like sometimes it is necessary to get a criminal to reveal something they had no intention of revealing. Sherlock will be slightly rude or mispaint things, and they go, "Ha! I will correct him."
Yeah. And that actually rings true because it's internet wisdom at this point that if you go onto Reddit and you want a question answered, you're far more likely to get that if you make an incorrect statement than you are if you ask a question.
Yeah.
People are far more eager to correct than to help.
Yes. The one major exception I'd say of Sherlock's rudeness is sort of a result of frustration or moving the case forwards, is his general opinion of the police of Scotland Yard.
Yeah.
That is just a resignation to they're not good enough. It's just like, there's not enough of them that are actually good at this job. But then again, if they were, they wouldn't come to him. So he may be rude about it, but he's probably thankful for it on some level. Otherwise, he wouldn't get the mysteries he does get from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that was the Six Napoleons.
Yes, let us move on to the adventure of the three students. Feels like a bit of a downgrade from the Six Napoleons.
The three students.
Yeah, there's less of them and they're of a lower standing.
Yes. Emperor of France, students.
Yeah.
Oh, students. We say this having both been to like university at the same university. It's how we met.
Yeah.
And I live in a university city. It's just, students. It's just.
So says the 7 ice cream men.
Yeah.
The ice cream man cometh.
Yeah. I tell you, the ice cream man comes. But in a slightly strange moment, the story actually starts with them having already left London on something completely unrelated to the case. They are in one of the great university towns, but Watson is going through a lot of this story to try and avoid giving any details as to like the town, the university, the college, and stuff, and has ostensibly changed names so that the details of the case cannot be put together and sort of reveal.
Names and place names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah, and sort of like to avoid tarnishing the reputation of the institution that did become their client shortly thereafter. But it's by the fact of it's sort of like you can narrow it down a fair bit by the fact it's a university town with medieval architecture in some of the buildings and relevant to the story, and Greek is a major requirement to be able to get a scholarship at it. So you're looking at Oxford or Cambridge by default.
Yeah.
Despite what General Melchett says.
Yeah. Oxford's a complete dump.
Yeah.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. I went to DMU and so did Dan.
Yeah. I have been to the universities when visiting the cities. Like I've had a talk, I've been around the public areas of them, and they are sort of very nice looking, but I can't imagine are particularly fun to live and work in long time.
Yeah.
I But then again, I am of a completely different social class to a lot of the people who will be working in them long time. I'm Except the cleaners. I am probably on the same class as the cleaners, if not actually still slightly below them, because it's Oxford and Cambridge still.
uh,
Yeah. I imagine the upper middle class is sort of like worrying, like, I might end up in the doing the cleaning around here, instead of the professor job I'm applying for. I am stereotyping somewhat, but yeah, they are posh institutions, and it's also like not many universities in the UK have sub colleges. It's like there is definitely a certain level of the university that has sub colleges, and Oxford and Cambridge are the ones that are known best for it.
yeah.
As you can tell when you watch University Challenge, because there'll be like uh, King's College, Cambridge, or Christ College, Cambridge, as sort of like in the team names, whereas other universities will just be University of Bath and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're in one of these university towns.
Seb says he was nearly on University Challenge, but they cut their episode. That's a shame. I remember you saying, actually, at the time.
Yeah, I remember for about every year I was at DMU, they were doing holdouts for team members to apply for University Challenge. I never did it myself, because while I can be good on some general knowledge, just not generally the stuff that comes up on University Challenge.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. They were residing in lodgings close to a library in the city. Holmes was doing research on early English charters. There's so rules, laws, stuff like that, I would imagine. And Watson was just being sort of Watson. This isn't the starting, because there's a bit in there where I actually have a tiny bit of knowledge as to what something is in there, but it's not this story. It's the next one. But a professor has basically come to them, and he's in a bit of a pickle because he received the proofs for a exam happening the next day for for translating Greek. These exams were to determine who would qualify for a scholarship out of 3 candidates. It's quite a valuable scholarship, but they don't say for how much. But given it's it's one of the great universities, is the assumption, and the scholarship was sort of presented as a way to pay for the whole thing.
It would have been quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I might have got lucky and been asked a question about King Zog that I and only about 5 people outside of Albania would know the answer to. Yes, our friend Seb has a is very interested by specifically the former Albanian King Zog.
Yeah.
I think you wrote a movie about him, or at least part of one.
Yeah. I now get the feeling we're going to need to find a story about King Zog just so we can invite Seb on to then talk for 3 hours about all his specific knowledge on the man.
Do you know?
Well, we just sit there listening.
Do you know any Tome Raider material books about King Zog, Seb?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, is there any historical fiction around that particular figure?
It's going to come out with a historical non-fiction that sounds more fantastical than historical fiction does. But yeah, while Seb thinks about that and then replies with uh, later, the master has come because he's had the exam proofs and he was double checking them to make sure that they were the correct sections and they'd be printed correctly, so that students wouldn't be penalised by like the wrong word being put into the Greek text. So they got the thing, and when he realised, oh, I said I would take tea with a colleague in their room. I will go. So he leaves, and then when he comes back, it looks clear to him that his room has almost basically been ransacked. Because like the two of the proofs are not where they were meant to be. His new, recently sort of recovered writing desk has a huge cut in it that wasn't there when he'd left. And the key to the outer of the two doors, there was a key in the lock of it, and it was open. And there's such things as that. So it's just things look suspicious, and the man has actually brought in fair bits of evidence with him, or like counts bits of evidence, because there was also some like black putty with sawdust in it as well brought up a bit.
Yeah.
And he's actually very good on sort of like listing everything that was wrong with it, to the point that Sherlock is able to deduce where two of the proofs were based upon what he said was strange about it.
Well, if
Without
there's one
having
thing I think academia universally drills into your skull, it's that the devil is in the details.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it's just that line always brings a bit up from Cat Out of Hell, expansion for one of the Saints Rose games.
I remember it.
Yeah, because there's a song with the devil singing, and this is they say the devil's in the detail. Well, I have got some more for you. It's just the devil casually singing and making a mockery of common sayings. Sorry, that comes up every time. And yeah. And Sherlock is sort of like, he gets the full description of everything that he's found, and it's just sort of like, so the papers at the start were on the table, rolled up. Yes. Would they be instantly recognizable as proofs? Possibly. Was anyone else in the room? No one. Did anyone know that you'd received the proof yet? No one save the printer. Did Bannister, your assistant, know? Oh, no, certainly not. He didn't know. Where's Bannister? No, he's in his rooms nearby. He's in a terrible shock, as it were, from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, and after this, and where are the papers now? And it's just sort of like, they're locked up, and then I made sure the door was locked before coming to get you. Well, I locked up the papers and I left. And coming to get you. Yeah, and it's just sort of like, it seems that a person who was tampering with the proofs seem to have been caught by surprise of their return, because they didn't come back the way they thought they would. Because from the view, you'd be able to see from the main entrance, but there's a side entrance which you can't see, which is how they came back.
Yeah.
So Sherlock is sufficiently intrigued to leave the research that he did not want to be disturbed while doing, to actually go to the college and find the culprit. There are 3 suspects which are brought up while Holmes does the examination, and concludes that basically everything he was told is correct. Though he concludes the person who did it, because there were some pencil shavings, their pencil must now be down to like its last third, and stuff like that, which is apparently useful to know because he's recognised double N on the bit that was cut off, and there's like the main brand made going on and had double N in it and things. But he determines that there was that the culprit had in fact gone into the professor's bedroom because the office is just off of the professor's quarters, because he found another of the putty pyramids, they describe them as, and I still cannot get into my head why these things would be pyramid shaped at all from this story.
I mean, I just picture the putties from Power Rangers making a human pyramid.
Yeah, but it's like a pyramid of this putty-like substance with sawdust into it. It's just sort of like Holmes concludes that when the professor came back and such, that in the panic the culprit had actually gone into the bedroom, and if he'd only gone in there he would know exactly who it is anyway. But instead he sort of rushed out after his assistant, servant, manservant, I can't remember exactly offhand, but Bannister came in and talked to him. He left after locking up the papers to go and get Sherlock, so Bannister was in the room. Which Sherlock is slightly suspicious of the man because there was a sign that Bannister, sort of in shock, had to take a seat, but he went to the one that was furthest away from when he would have come in and seen the scene. And so Sherlock's suspicious of him.
Yeah.
And there are 3 possible culprits. It's or suspects that the professor has. There is and they're all in the 3 floors above him in their lodgings, the 3 contenders for the
scholarship.
That's it. Chap called Gilchrist, who's an athletic chap who's in the one directly above. Of industrious worker whose father fell upon ill fortunes, i.e. he got really into horse racing and lost everything. Who is an athletic hurdler and long jumper and industrious as description. And there is an Indian called Ras, who is in the floor above, who's described as quite a methodical and slightly sort of mysterious, like all his race. Is the impression I get the text is wanting to say. But he seems to... But the professor seems absolutely fine with him, like there's nothing to say. He's reasonably sure that Gilchrist and Ras are the 2 least likely of the candidates, but the third one is a man called Miles McLaren, who is thoroughly dissolute and given to gambling as well. And he also he has not taken his work seriously, even though he is gifted. He takes them, Sherlock and Watson, to go up and meet these men because and they use a slight deception of Sherlock wanting to is an interest in medieval architecture and is wanting to examine bits in these rooms, which is apparently a normal thing that happens in this college.
Yeah.
Is that students' private rooms get invaded just before important exams so that visitors can sketch interesting medieval architectural details.
Naturally.
Yeah. In the first 2 rooms, Gilchrist's and Rass's, Sherlock snaps his pencil while taking and asks to borrow one, and he does from both of them. And he then also borrows their knives to sharpen his own before he leaves, because he's concluded that the knife for sharpening the pencil is a bit dull. And also, he's already concluded the length of the pencil, so he's seeing if anyone has this sort of giveaway or this tell for it, which neither of the first two do. But the third one doesn't let them in because he's stressed and he doesn't want to be disturbed, and is quite rude to them. But Sherlock, the only thing Sherlock inquires about with the professor on him after that is he of an unusual height? To which, no, quite normal, quite ordinary. So Sherlock goes, you can keep the exam going tomorrow, but we will be over in the morning, and we will
And he
have
seems pretty sure that the guilty party won't compete.
Yeah, won't do the exam. So it's implied because he's going to reveal the guilty party, and therefore you'll be able to remove them before the case. But the next morning they make it there, and they go, how can we make this look like an academic sort of probation board? You know, three chairs together and sit close and face the door. And they call him Bannister, who is shaken a little by this, refuses to change any detail of his story, even when confronted with Sherlock confronts him with points. Sherlock has actually been out in the night, and he came back with a third of these putty pyramids to show Watson, and it's just sort of like, this is the comprehensive piece of evidence that has allowed him to say exactly who it is, and it will be utilised to sort of take them down if needed. But the next person they call in is Gilchrist. And it turns out it was Gilchrist who was the one who was cheating. Because things were hard and he needed the money because his father had ruined them with horse racing betting. And in a moment of weakness, seeing the proofs there, he took the opportunity after Bannister had accidentally left the door unlocked, because it was his key that was in the door, and he'd come in to see whether his master wanted tea or not. But he had not been there, hadn't locked up properly, having not noticed the proofs.
I guess the temptation just got the better of him.
Temptation got the best of Gilchrist, and but Gilchrist had seen the proofs from the professor's window when he was coming back, because Gilchrist is of unusual height, hence why he's a hurdler and a long jumper. And the putty pyramids are from the long jump and hurdle ground, where it's sort of like a black clay's put down and then sawdust on top to mitigate the fall. And it would have come out of his shoes that he was carrying with him for coming back from practicing on the field. So he'd rushed in, was doing these copies, and then got caught out, rushed into the bedroom. Bannister then came in sort of like hearing the noise, and recognised the gloves that Gilchrist had worn, that he'd left on a chair, which is why when he had his like, I'm going to faint, he went to that chair so he could sit on them, and the professor wouldn't see the gloves and immediately know who it was. And the reason why Bannister would do this for Gilchrist is he was Gilchrist's father's butler, and he still felt loyal to the family even 8 years later. After.
Always a secret family tie of some kind, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, not always. There's a lot of them in these stories.
Yeah. Gilchrist reproaches Bannister for his perceived betrayal, but Sherlock does set him right on this and goes, no, we worked this out. Bannister was loyal to the last, because the gentleman... it seems that the upper class cannot behave do anything but behave gentlemanly truthfully or loyally. You can lie as long as it's out of loyalty to someone who is a higher social station than you. Seems to be like it is not a sin in these stories.
Yeah.
He's like if you lie to protect, like you are the butler and you lie to protect your employer or former employer, as family, that is fine. But if you are working class and you lie for yourself, oh, that's prison, matey.
Yeah.
But Gilchrist isn't punished for this because Sherlock has sort of worked out. Sherlock has come to the conclusion that Gilchrist is going to leave of his own accord. Now, there is no evidence to suggest that anything is actually coming that would allow Gilchrist to leave, but apparently he has taken up an offer to work in with the Rhodesian police.
Rhodesia.
He's received,
What is now known as Zimbabwe?
yeah, Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Sorry, that's a
so,
Metal Gear reference. Couldn't resist.
Yeah, and I did a pronunciation by Hugh Dennis for a between the lines.
Yeah.
I lost things. I lost things. No, I lost things.
There have also
Lost.
been times of terrible loss.
Yeah. Yes, it's just sort of like I lost things. My boat. My horse. Zimbabwe. Yeah. Yes. God, that was a very early season of Mock the Week. Well, Sandy Toxford was on it to talk about the Dane who drew pictures of the Prophet Muhammad. So that was a good 20 years ago, or approaching 20.
Time is terrifying.
Yes, it is. But anyway, so Bannister is sort of forgiven for this because he technically did not break any rules. He was being loyal, as we said, and being loyal to someone who is maintaining loyalty to someone who is of a higher social standing than you is a virtue, not a vice. In this, so he doesn't seem to have been punished for this.
Like,
and
you can be a little bit naughty as long as you know your place, it seems.
Yeah, and you can be naughty on behalf of someone who is still sort of learning their place to a bit. Gilchrist doesn't get any sort of downsides other than the fact, of course, he's being shipped off to Africa. that is a fair bit of a downside, but he's not. No scandals hitting the college, no scandals hitting the family, and he's going to probably have what will turn out to be a respectable career. Even if he turns out to be an absolute bastard, it will probably still be labelled a respectable career.
Which, I mean, let's be fair, statistically he will be an absolute bastard.
Yeah, and the exam goes ahead with this time only two contenders, who it will probably go to Russ because he's the only one who's actually sort of prepared for it out of the two. Though they don't say as much in the text, it is the implication. And there's either the strangely stressed McLaren, who is going to absolutely fluff the thing, or the one who Watson briefly wondered if they were suspicious because they watched from windows outside and he was clearly pacing back and forth in his rooms when they were observing, and Holmes went, "No, that's normal. He's trying to commit a large amount of information to memory, or commit something to memory. Anyone would pace back and forth in that." It's Russ is probably getting the scholarship, and McLaren is probably about to have a very rude wake-up call for academia.
Yeah.
They're not as rude as Gilchrist being shipped off to Africa. Yeah. Yeah, because the main sort of clue, like the scratches on the desk that got mentioned in the tear, weren't caused by a knife, but were caused because that's where Gilchrist puts his spiked jumping shoes. Because that makes all the sense in the world where you're trying to sort of like be stealthy and not leave anything. I know, I'll put the spiked things on the incredibly fine new leather on this writing desk. There's no way that my muddy, spiky shoes will leave any mark upon this clean new leather.
Ugh.
He wasn't exactly thinking, so there it is. And
I suppose he was in a panic.
yeah, and there he is being shipped off to Africa after that. And it was a bit more of a. It was an interesting story, and it's nice to have one that does not in any way take part in London.
Yeah. Or involve a murder.
Yeah, but it is. I think it was also the shortest of the ones that we dealt with today in terms of length.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce the next one.
Golden Pince-Nez.
The Golden Pince-Nez. I keep reading that as Pince-Nez.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I only know how to pronounce that because I have seen it in enough programs where they have sort of like the oafish lower class person who deals with one who's more used to the refined thing, and they encounter it and they say it horribly and then get corrected, which happens in a surprising amount of crime dramas. Like crime dramas where they have like an example of this sort of thing. Bones and Rosolian Isles both sort of have this running thing where one half of the title or like lead pair is sort of more used to or is more working class, used to more hardworking and less refined thing, and the other is used to the very refined stuff.
Yeah. I've never heard the term Pince-Nez in my life.
They are basically an extra thick pair of glasses that opera glasses with like the thick hold that they are essentially like that, but they don't have the large stick on the side. But it's that. So
they're
style
wearable opera glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that sort of thing because yeah, in the case, the working out who it is because we find a pair of golden Pince-Nez. This, as it turns out, is the second piece of information of explaining that I actually had, because the first one actually comes in a bit earlier, because the story starts once again in Baker Street on a wretched evening, as it were. Yeah. They describe it, and they're having a visitor who's coming at very late, and it's raining. And it's Inspector Hopkins, who I think we've had in a couple of stories in this volume. Is the one I think Black Peter was Inspector Hopkins as well, but is a fan of Sherlock's methods, who Sherlock sees potential in amongst the officers that he deals with.
Stanley Hopkins.
Yes, and when they arrive, Watson has been sort of just reading about things, and Holmes has been reading a palimpsest, in which the way that they describe it in the text slightly, it sort of almost gets what a palimpsest is wrong, because they describe it as it almost comes across in the text as a palimpsest is a type of writing, like a memoir sort of thing. Or at least that's how it sounded when I listened to it twice. Because this is the only one I had to listen to more than once, because I fell asleep in the middle of it. So I came to them going to the countryside, and then I was hearing the final, 2-3 paragraphs. So I had no clue what was going on and had to listen to it the next day. But I know what a palimpsest is, and I only know this because my degree is in English literature.
Yeah.
A palimpsest is a piece of writing done. We can't make these so much nowadays with modern writing. It's where you take a piece of writing so material that's already been written on, you scrape off the ink and you reuse it to the paper or the material to write something new, but you can still see what was on there originally. The process is called palimpsesting. It does not work with paper and modern inks. Inks just because they're completely different things and paper isn't strong enough to survive the process. Because writing, when palimpsesting was a thing, was generally done on vellum, so animal skins treated to be used to write on.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not a
actually
pal.
quite hard to picture to me.
Yeah, it is a thing. I've not actually had my hands on one, but I learnt about them. The closest equivalent we would get nowadays is if you're using a notepad, you're particularly hard while writing the first bit, you tear the page off, and then you just write normally on the next page, because you'll have the indents from the page above. That's the closest sort of thing we have nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's not the same thing. But it's an interesting thing. We've actually found sort of some writings that we thought were lost, or like some old information, by studying the original text underneath the new writing. It's not an easy thing to do, and the more this a piece could be palimpsest more than once, so you could have like 2 or 3 scraped off pieces of writing underneath a piece. Though amusingly, given that the British government still, I believe, still uses vellum to write laws, you can technically palimpsest a law. Now, scrape something else and put something new in.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I only know about that because of who was a local MP to me at the time, Jacobs Rees-Mogg. One of his few speeches in the House of Commons was a passionate defence of not cutting the use of vellum for the recording of our laws, because by Jove, if the laws are only written on paper, then they don't mean anything. You need something with permanence to write them on. And just thinking is sort of like, well, if you're that keen on it, you should pay for it with your own paycheck, because it's near enough same amount of saving. But anyway, local politicians aside,
Yeah. Let's
yeah,
not dwell on Jacob Rees-Mogg.
No. But to go with Seb's comment of a palimpsest, not a palincest. A palincest might very well be being friends with Jaime Lannister, or indeed any of the Habsburgs with that mighty chin of theirs. Yes, the Habsburg dynasties were 3 families that just interbred to maintain power spectacularly. To the extent that the line actually ended because they went infertile and insane.
Yeah.
Or sort of like the line's grip on power certainly ended because of that. Yes. Anyway, so Hopkins has come because and he's asking, have you seen the horrible case of the Willoughby Smith case? And it's just like Holmes like, no, I have been in the 15th century all day, even palimpsest. So there's just sort of like so look through the evening papers and learn that Professor Coram his secretary has been murdered, and it's sort of a horrible thing. He is an invalid and he's a man of great learning. There's how they describe him. So well educated and not physically able to do much anymore because he's meant to be quite old. I think implied to be 80s or higher.
Yeah.
Or 80 or older. Yeah, and it's happened at his Yoxley Old Place, or Yoxley Old Place. which is sort of the manor house he's almost taken over. It might just be a country home he's taken over rather than a full manor. But the man was found. The secretary was found in Corum's study, and by a maid, and the maid thought he was dead. Had poured water over his head, sort of. I'm imagining this is sort of like in shock at seeing him, like water spilled when she sort of like did this stereotypical, as you see on TV, gasp. They drop whatever they're holding, move their hands to their mouth, sort of thing.
Oh my word!
Or she could have thought he was unconscious and tried to kill it. But his last words were, "The professor, it was she." And then there, he dies thereafter, and it's just sort of like yeah, and
oh, woman, Professor, preposterous.
Yeah,
that isn't not their response.
Yeah, the maid confirmed to Hopkins, not Huxley, that before the murder she'd heard Smith move to the study, that no one else had come like through the bits that she could observe. So that meant that she came in through the garden, and Hopkins did manage to detect a slight trace of steps in the grass to the side of the path. Couldn't tell which way they were going. There was tiling by the gate, so you couldn't get a clear sign of any footsteps there on either side of it. That would suggest any information about the killer. The maid had been gone into the room because there was a loud scream. The professor was still in their bed chambers because he is an old man and he likes to rise around 12 if the weather is bad.
I mean, mood.
It's because it's when they eventually get there, Holmes looking at it and going, "Damn, has a monsoon obliterated our evidence?" It's the sort of thing he takes on. But and Smith had taken a walk shortly before the murders, or the murder. So the assumption is they could have only come in through the back door, and they left the same way very quickly. But they didn't seem to have taken anything from what they could tell, or they had tried to take something from the locked bureau, because that was the only thing where important documents might have been.
Yeah.
Well, they conclude nothing was taken because the professor had the only key for the bureau. It was locked, and anything that was of value was in there. But the lone piece of evidence they find is that the secretary had managed to grab a pair of golden Pince-Nez spectacles from what they presumed as the killer, because he himself had brilliant eyesight. And Holmes, after messing about with them, holding up to his eye, observing, comes to a few conclusions, which some of them are definitely going to feel a bit pseudoscience-y or disproven science from it, and some of like the features that come with it.
Just remember that this was published in 1905.
Yeah, it's a woman. She is of some good breeding. She dresses like a lady. She is a person of refinement and is well dressed. She has a thick nose. Her eyes are close together. This is the bit that is sort of the complete guesswork that feels a bit eugenicsy to me, and sort of instead.
Yeah,
she has
I remember.
A peering look and slightly rounded shoulders. And a bit that is not at all anything based upon sort of physical characteristics. She has been to an optician at least twice over the last few months, which I think is about the safest assumption that he makes on there, that they've been to an optician in the last few months. But twice. The twice is because one of the glasses are relatively new, and one of the cork bits, because glasses have support so they don't dig into your nose, which instead, or they're more comfortable when sitting on the bridge of your nose. And instead of causing the lenses to dig in, they themselves dig into your nose. One of the cork supports had been replaced and was therefore a lighter colour than the other one, which necessitated the second trip. Yep, and Holmes and Watson have another sleepover guest in this one, because they have Hopkins stay over the night as well before they all head down.
They're just having excuses to have lads' nights, aren't they?
Lad nights, or if you go with the my God, they were roommates, a third. Let's add a bit of variety.
Yeah. I mean, what
the,
would a Victorian lads' night even look like? Probably a lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, possibly a hunt of some sort. The comment I was going to make is, I say, these thirds bring their own handcuffs. How helpful. Yeah.
Sorry if my voice is a little inconsistent today. I'm sorry if you hear that, but I've just had to turn my fan on. My room is getting intolerable.
This is understandable. I've had my fans on the whole time.
Yeah. I apologise if you can hear that. There is a buzzing from mine.
I can't hear anything through Discord, so...
Oh, good.
Simple, let us know.
Yeah.
But they go down to the Yokesley, and Holmes examines the site. He concludes that very careful walking in one direction, not both.
Yeah.
Both in the garden, going in. He notices that there is a large scratch by the bureau lock and in the varnish that the cleaner hadn't seen the day before. Hadn't seen when she cleaned it the day before, so that came after the cleaning, but before the murder.
Seb says he can't hear anything. Brilliant. This mic is really good for filtering out background noise.
That's it.
Provided I can get it to pick up my voice.
Indeed. And, and they come to the conclusion that Smith was killed because he'd interrupted a crime, not because he was, like, a target. It wasn't premeditated, as because it's noted that the knife was from the writing desk for the sharpening of pencils and quills.
Yeah.
It was,
well, it was a letter opener essentially.
Yeah. Sherlock says an assassin doesn't come without a weapon. So the fact it was a weapon of convenience suggests it was not premeditated.
No, it was an improvised weapon for an improvised murder.
Yeah. And so they've taken the route in that they've taken was lined with coconut matting, as it is called. Now, if you want the idea of what coconut matting is look at an old brown doormat. That is essentially what the carpeting was like in this house, in these corridors, which isn't a bad shout.
That does not sound comfortable.
No, but given that this is a back door from garden into a study passageway, that's not a bad shout for carpeting for that road.
No, I suppose not.
Because then you don't have to like wait outside if it's raining and scrape your boots. You just shuffle along in the corridor and take them off at the end.
Yeah, that's handy.
Yeah, but the bit that is uncomfortable is because they then go into uh, Coram's room, or Coram's room, and that corridor also has coconut matting all over the floor. And that one probably does seem quite uncomfortable because that's between the study and the bedroom.
Yeah.
But it is brought up because it's an important detail. Oh, and they meet Coram, who is still in bed in his bed clothes because he's an invalid, as their description is, so he doesn't rise much. And by Jove, we finally met someone who might be a more prolific smoker than Sherlock. Because we learned that he has a refined taste for cigarettes that are from Egypt.
I remember the line, I don't know whether the cigarettes have helped his health or hurt it. Well, I think these days we would know.
Yeah, it's I think that's in relation to his appetite in a later bit.
Yeah.
But what we learn is that every 2 weeks he gets a delivery of 1,000 of them because he's run out.
1,000 cigarettes in 2 weeks.
Yeah. That is one every 20 minutes, assuming one does not sleep.
And presumably he sleeps at some point.
If we're assuming that he's getting 8 hours sleep, that means that he's probably having one every 10 to 15 minutes.
Bloody hell. Speaking of King Zog earlier, Seb, we might have a bit of competition there.
Yeah. Yes. But Sherlock, while they're talking...
he's already mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah, Sherlock takes several of these cigarettes while they're in there and is pacing back and forth across the room, just dropping ash. They're in there for probably about 10-15 minutes themselves, talking. And Sherlock gets through over 4 or 5 of them. Because there's a bit where he mentioned he reaches for his 5th, but then his 4th, and then there's still a bit more going on. And Watson specifically mentions his pacing again with it. So he's possibly had 5 of the man's cigarettes in this space of time.
Yeah.
Sherlock seems to actually quite like them. He refers to himself as a connoisseur, yeah.
Well, I mean, Sherlock Holmes would be just called a druggie by today's standards.
Yeah, though it sounds like
King Zog, as you mentioned.
According to Seb, it sounds like King Zog would have absolutely hands down beaten Coram in the level of smoking, because cut down from 400 to 200 a day. A fortnight at 200 a day is nearly 3,000, as opposed to this chap's 1,000. My God, Zog must have just been hooked up to a machine that just put the smoke in him at this rate. But during the talk, the professor puts forward the idea that it was a suicide and that the knife came loose from when he hit the ground. Note the letter opener, knife, pencil sharpener went in the back of his head. So I don't know, if I was going to kill myself with a sharp object, I would probably not be doing aiming for the back of my own head.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a tough target to reach, or at least to hit accurately with any degree of reliability.
Yeah, and Sherlock mentions that someone seems to be trying to get into the bureau, and the professor just hands over the key, going, "Go check yourself. There's nothing of importance in there." Sherlock looks at the key for a moment, hands it back, going, "No, I don't think I need to. Now, if you excuse me, just take a bit out." And they go for a walk, and then talk to a short walk around, and then talk to the maid who does the chef, the kitchen maid, and talk about the food, which is where they talk about. Can't say whether cigarettes would have hindered or helped his health and his appetite.
Yeah.
And revealed that after this has happened, he has actually eaten more for breakfast than he normally does by a noticeable amount. and has ordered a hearty lunch as well. And Sherlock, they wait a bit until after the lunch has been served and eaten, and go in, and Sherlock sort of like, well, I know exactly what happened, and is just sort of like starts explaining it. The professor has pushed the cigarettes towards Sherlock, who, when reaching for them, knocked them over, scrabbling across the floors to find them, and then brings them all back up. And that's when Sherlock goes, "I've got it! I have solved the case."
Oh, it's probably worth mentioning that Watson describes Holmes as looking kind of sullen up to this point, like he's lost all interest in the case.
Yeah. Yeah, there is an air a bit about this case that it's a bit too simple for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's he says that the woman came in to get files from the bureau, was interrupted by the secretary, who had just been speaking with Coram, the professor, about a strange woman that had been seen in town, and who had asked him for directions to this very building. And so saying about that, and then he interrupts, and it's the same woman who he interrupts in that, and that's why his last words were, "The woman, it is the professor. It was she." Because they literally, like 5 minutes earlier, been talking about this woman. But Holmes then says, "But she didn't get out the back of the house." No, she got confused because she could barely see without her glasses. Because, like, the strength of them is ridiculous, as Sherlock had said earlier.
Yeah.
And she got confused because the corridors both had the same coconut matting. And she only realised her mistake when she burst into the professor's bedroom.
Well, she couldn't go back at that point.
Yeah, and the professor was like, "No, what utter nonsense. I was in my bed at the time. I would have noticed if a woman came into the bedroom." It's like, "Yes,
And
you would have.
Indeed you did.
Which is why you hit her." It's just sort of like, what? And he's just sort of like, look at the floor around here. It's all cigarette ash and piles of books, apart from in front of that bookcase, which is what he would have been walking back and forth in front of while he was smoking. I had a chance to examine the change in the ash after I deliberately knocked your cigarettes over, and indeed it has been disturbed. And sort of like, the murderer is behind that bookcase. And then as he says this, the bookcase swings open, and the woman dressed in black, who they say matches Sherlock's description from earlier, but with a jutting chin as well, comes out of it.
And she says, "All right, you got me."
Yeah.
And because this is a noble person, of noble bearing, they immediately come clean and confess everything. Because it's the classy thing to do.
Also, in this case, that she wants Sherlock to do something for her, because it's not made clear until it's too late. But just before she came through, she had swallowed a vial of poison.
Yeah.
So she is dying. So this is like a dying declaration, and she's asked Sherlock and Watson to do puts a duty in their charge. And this turns out to be a woman called Anna, who is a Russian, like the professor, who was not revealed to be a Russian until this moment. And Anna is his
wife.
Yes, his wife, who they married when he was 50 and she was 20.
Yeah.
And but when they were like married and young, or he was younger and she was young, they've been involved with a group which, from a brief look of research, is a group of nihilists, of sort of like followers of the philosophy rather than sort of how we would perceive them now, but
Yeah.
they're still sort of portrayed as dangerous, almost anarchist sort of faction at this. And she and a fellow non-violent nihilist friend were betrayed by him. He sold them out to get a reduced sentence and the reward, basically, to get a reward instead of a sentence. And she very much seemed to actually be in love with this other one who was arrested.
Yeah. But,
And
like, for some reason, she never took any vengeance on him.
yeah, well, she was in prison until relatively recently, is what was a suggestion of it.
Yeah.
But he'd essentially gloated by quoting her parts from some of her letters and her diary in correspondence while she was in prison, which led her to conclude that the evidence that was needed to prove that the person she loved was innocent was in the professor had it. So she'd been working to find out where it was, and the second secretary that had been fired by the professor for not being very good at their job had worked out where the files were and had made a copy of the key of the bureau, or taken an impression of it so a copy could be made. But that was as far as they were willing to go, so she came to do it herself. And it was sheer bad luck that the secretary had come in. And she just grabbed the nearest thing to sort of hit him on the head and knock him out. And she just happened to grab a sharp thing. And she is deeply sorry for it. But, and when she'd run, because she'd lost her glasses, she went down the wrong corridor and was able to use the document to sort of, I have power over you, because if this gets back home, you're basically going to be hunted down and killed.
Yeah.
So he agreed to hide her, but there was too much going on for her to actually get away in the meantime.
Yeah. And of course, once the game was up, she'd killed a man, so I guess she decided to just drink the poison and be done with it.
Yeah, so she drank the poison and trusted the documents to Holmes to deliver to the Russian embassy. In which he decides he's going to, and says as much in front of the professor, who knows that he's basically that's a death sentence for him. But given the state he's in, he's probably not got much left before death comes for him anyway.
Yeah.
So shortly after these final the final revelations she gives out, she passes away from the poison, and it's just sort of like the moment they realise the poison, Sherlock is going sort of, no, stop her, because he thinks that she's pulling the vial out to down it, not realising that it is empty, and she's pulling it out to emphasise that this is like her final moments.
Yeah. No, I already drank the poison, I'm afraid. There's not much you can do.
Yeah, and so with that, Sherlock and Watson leave everything in Hopkins' care, and just start making their way back home again. We'll stop at the Russian embassy on the way back. And that's...
Yeah. We'll just, drop these life-destroying documents off on the way home.
Yeah. Well, from their perspective, it is a way that sort of like he is a wrong 'un, but he is not within our jurisdiction to be able to do anything with. So we'll just drop off the evidence to who it is appropriate to. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, like, the last one was probably, I mean, they were all pretty consistently entertaining this week. The three students, I mean, having been through most of academia myself, because, I mean, I didn't manage to get onto a PhD. I wouldn't have managed one if I did. I can tell you that with reasonable confidence, because Masters basically killed me. yeah. I mean, just to see how. I mean, I don't want to say I found the pressure nostalgic. Like the pressure the students were under. But I empathise with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. It's also sort of like the upper class. You've got to maintain sort of the respectability of the family name, even if the family name is in the absolute gutters anyway,
Yeah.
because father is ruined on horse gambling.
Yeah. Although I will say I thought the three students, was the weakest of the three, at least marginally.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because there isn't a murder. The murder also does hold attention a lot easier than the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sort of opening spiel as to Sherlock Watson saying why he chose like the first case is because it's not the most fantastical, but it's the one that gives the most showing of Sherlock's abilities. For example, they mention a case which involves an assassin, I think, in the intro for one of the stories, which earned Sherlock a signed card from the president of France and I can't like one of the highest French orders at the time. Come on, that's going to annoy me now. I think it was in the first one. Oh no, it seems to be this one. Order of the Legion of Honor.
Ah.
Yeah, an autographed letter of thanks from the French president and the Order of the Legion of Honor. So, yeah, so it's like these are interesting things, but they decided to go with the Pince-Nez instead.
I quite liked the Pince-Nez story.
Yeah.
Though I did basically already know from osmosis that the guy stealing the Napoleon busts was looking for something embedded inside one of them.
Yeah. And so it is a fairly easy deduction to make, given that there were three smashed ones. But again, is like osmosis. How much of that is because we've encountered stories based off of it, versus us actually working it out.
Yeah.
It was all like being able to say, "Oh, they're smashing that because there's something inside it." Like, but if we hadn't encountered that idea before, would we have got there? Yeah. But the Legion of Honor is the highest order of merit, both for the military and for the civilian population that France can give out. So Sherlock really must have done something to impress them to event that.
Yeah.
I must admit that gives these slight Abe Simpson vibes of just sort of like him remembering his mine detecting days with a metal detector in The Simpsons as in World War II, and he's just thinking back to it, and he beeps and points tanks one way, it's destroyed. A jeep one way, it's destroyed, and then it points a different way, and the tank then goes off a cliff. He's standing there, hand over heart, and remembering it. And that's how I earned the Iron Cross. It just has that slight level of energy to it of someone who was a natural enemy of what it is, getting one of the highest orders. For he is an Englishman.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as you say, the French president is probably still sort of like is in the middle rung of sort of the people that Sherlock has dealt with in these stories: kings, popes, lords, presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've only got 3 more stories left in this compilation.
Yeah, there's 3 stories in this compilation, a novel, and then another 2 compilations. One of which is 8, but we've already covered one of them because chronologically it was in an earlier volume. like on time it was written and time it was based, and it makes reference to the one before it as part of it, the Adventure of the Cardboard Box, which was, I think I said at the time, wasn't included in the original one because of the nature of the story. The infidelity was considered such a big thing that they
Oh yeah,
took
no,
it
I
out of the
remember
book.
that one. Like to this day, I think it's one of the more brutal stories we've had on this show.
Yeah, and then so there's 2 compilations and 1 novel, which I think equals out about another 7, including the end of this one. There's another 8 classics on Tome Raider classics on Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and then we will have read all of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes,
We will be
and probably
certified
remember,
Sherlock Holmes experts.
and probably remember jack shit of it by the end of it.
The life of a bookworm.
Yeah, and just going, was that in this book or this book, or was that not even that character? Is it? As I have said to you, I would like to do Agatha Christie at some point, but she wrote more short stories than Arthur Conan Doyle wrote novels, and she wrote more novels than Arthur Conan Doyle wrote short stories. So sort of like their numbers are the opposite way round.
Yeah.
So like she's got a small number of short stories, and then I think 60 plus novels.
Bloody hell.
But admittedly, a benefit of Agatha Christie's crime work is that it's split across multiple detectives.
Yeah, I know Poirot.
But Poirot and Miss Marple are both Agatha Christie works, and
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there's another one, but I can't remember it offhand. But we'll worry about that in about in about 16 weeks' time when we finally finish this.
So in 2 weeks' time, sorry, did you have anything more to say about the 3 stories we've covered today?
No, not really.
Yeah. Well, in 2 weeks' time, we will be back with the adventures of the missing 3/4, the Abbey Grange, and the second stain to close out the return of Sherlock Holmes. Although next week, something a little different, we'll be discussing Animorphs 2, The Visitor by K.A. Applegate, because we're alternating now.
Yes, to save our sanity.
Yeah, and also because I quite like this series. I think they hold up pretty well for what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be that. And, yes, and tomorrow we shall be returning with Ghost of Yote, The Adventures of Lady Baskethead, the Laundry Ronin.
Yes. Following
the second
on from,
Laundry Ronin.
Yeah, following on from Jin Sakai, Lord Baskethead, the Laundry Ronin, the first.
The first Laundry Ronin.
Yes. Until then...
So,
well, until then, I guess happy reading, and, also I have Mafia Monday for Yakuza / Like a Dragon on this channel on Mondays at 8 PM. The following mornings I have Tombury Tuesday will be... Oh wait, no, not this week. Mora's busy on the Tuesday. So,
normally,
the following week
this
we'll
week
be starting Final Fantasy X, which will be the last leg of the Tombury Tuesday time slot.
Okay.
After we finish the Yakuza series for Mafia Monday, I'm just going to move Final Fantasy to Monday. Because I don't want to get up early to do them. And also, Mora has another stream that day as well.
That is fair enough. And then, will D&D be starting up again this week?
It will, yes. It will be Goblins versus Icewind Dale on twitch.tv/eclectichawk.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be interesting. There will be goblins, there will be chaos, and I might as well say there will be goblins again, because when I said there was chaos, I basically meant there'll be goblins.
Yeah.
So there'll be goblins,
yeah.
and Icewind Dale, and whatever nonsense is threatening Icewind Dale, which I'm not going to say what I believe it is because I have spoken about this module with others to not give my co-host any spoilers because I don't think they know anything about the module.
I know exactly nothing about the module.
Yeah, so I will try and keep it that way for you.
Okay, I will. Well, we will be back next week with. Well, we've just said all the stuff.
Yeah, the visit, and
The The
we'll be
Visitor
back
by
to,
K.A. Applegate, Animorphs. It's a good series, and they're not terribly long. You can easily read one of those in a week.
yeah, and we will, but we will be back tomorrow. Is the main thing on the Day of Fathers, where
Yes.
we will be stabbing people because the Atsu no longer has hers.
Ah. Well, thank you for listening, everyone, and good night, everybody.